Review in my Mori Meluka. This is in Chelik Aleph. This is the 49th Mamer. The Mamer of Vayomer Lo Yehonoson Mocher Chodesh. The Rebbe said this Mamer on Shabbos Parshas Toldos, which was Mevorach Chodesh and Erev Chodesh Kislev, that you read this Haftorah in Tofshin Mem Hey. And then later on, as it says in the note, they published this Mamer um, in the Kuntris, in the booklet for Rosh Chodesh Kislev, Tafshin and Beis. And this was in the booklet, it was says in honor of Yom HaBoy, Rosh Chodesh Kislev, and the date at Rosh Chodesh Kislev, Hey Tafshin and Beis. So Tafshin and Beis, that's when they published this Maimon. So we'll do the Maimon inside. Beside the Shmaya, Shabbos Parshas Toldos, Mevorach HaChodesh, Ve'erev Rosh Chodesh Kislev, Hey Tafshin and Beis. So the Rebbe brings down the posik, Vayomer Lo Yehonoson Mocher Chodesh v'nifkadito ki pocket mishavach. So Yehonathan says to David that tomorrow is this Chodesh, and he will be remembered. V'nifkadito, David will be remembered ki pocket mishavach, because his seat at the Rish Chodesh table will be missing. And then Shaul is going to ask for him because of the fact that he is missing. So basically, the level of nifkadito, how do you get remembered, and the level of zikaron. The Rebbe will explain that zikaron is a very high level, uh, as the Rebbe explains in the Maimer. And how do we reach that level is through ki pocket mishavecha, through the level of bittel, which is really a message. David, this is talking about David, but David is Malchus, and all Yidden are Bnei Melachim, so it's a message for all of us that through our level of bittul, we're able to reach into bringing down a very high madrege. So the Tzemach Tzedek explains in his Maimer that opens up with the same Vayomer Lo Yehonoson. David hu bechinas Malchus. David is the level of Malchus. David was the king, he is the level of Malchus. In Svirus, he is the Malchus. Hakoileles as kol nishamas Yisrael. The level of Malchus includes all Yidden. So meaning what happens to Malchus, the bittel of Malchus, which is also associated with the bittel of the Levana, and then the renewal of the Levana, it applies to all Yidden, because all Yidden are Bnei Melachim, sons of king. We come from Malchus, we're sons of Malchus. So what takes place with Malchus, what takes place with the Levana, what takes place that we are remembered, the Hamshocha comes a greater Hamshocha after the bittel of the moon, of the Levana. Then there's a renewal from a much greater place of the Shemesh that starts the new month, is a higher Madrega. This is similarly included by all Yidden. So what is the idea? That you will be remembered because your seat will be missing. Through the fact that it will be lacking, it will be missing. Where your place, where you sit, will be lacking, will be missing, which is the level of bittul, meaning to self negation. That way, through this, you will be remembered, which is Hamshochas Hazakaran de Lamailo. We draw down the level of Zikaron, of remembering of above. Bittel brings down the Hamshochas Hazikaron, meaning in all levels, whether we're talking about a Yid or we're talking about the level of Malchus, through the level of Bittel, they bring down the level of Nifkadito. The Zikaron Ubchinas Nailas B'Yesek Idl. The Rebbe will say later on, explain what the level of Zikaron is. The Rebbe talks about there's different levels of Isarusa de Le'ela, which are higher and higher, and the level of Zikaron is higher than even the highest level of Isarusa de Le'ela. Bezehu HaKesher V'nifkadeto ki yipoked meishavecha imocher chodesh. And this idea, when we say bittel brings zikaron, is the connection, the tie. Then we say v'nifkadeto ki yipoked meishavecha imocher chodesh. That the pasuk says there, he was telling him mocher chodesh. What's the connection to mocher chodesh? To this idea of missing and lacking to bring about this zikaron. Because the before Rish Chodesh, Mocher Chodesh, so Mocher is the renewal. So this is talking about Erev Rish Chodesh. Erev Rish Chodesh, who Helem behester halavona. So before Rish Chodesh, the halavona is entirely obscured and blocked. But sheberega shalifnei hamoiled. To the extent that the instance before the renewal of the new moon, there's not even left gam nekuda, even a drop. There's nothing left from the moon. Total bittul. And then through this bittul, then what takes place? Then tomorrow becomes the renewal. Moiled halavona mechodosh, a new birth of the moon. Hamshochas oir chodosh mahashemesh lilavona, drawing down a new light from the sun to the moon, the reflection of the new month. It's a new light from the sun to the moon. Shelo heir ba mekodim, that has not shined there before. This is a new moiled, a new hamshocha that comes down to the levona. Who be Israel, Shedaimim Lilavana, same thing is by Yidden, who are similar to the Levana. As we say, Shehem Asidim Li'Ischadish, Kemoiso. The Rebbe quotes different places here that the Yidden who are similar also have that, just like the moon becomes Mischadish, a new oil, through the bittul, is the same thing is by a Yid. Through their level of self-negation, through bittul, their bittul, that brings down in them, extends to them, is drawn down in them a very great light, an chodesh, a new light. A Yid serving the Eibishter with bittul, that level of bittul brings him down a whole new light. What kind? The Rebbe explains what specifically it's called a remembering light. The Rebbe will explain that when you talk about remembering, it represents a very high level. That the reason why drawing down this light is called nifkadeto, you'll be remembered, which is zikorin, remembered. Because when we draw down a light from a place which has already belongs to the world, it's connected to the world, Gam ha'oir, and we're talking about Gam ha'oir shalamayla ma'olamais avol shayach la'olamais. We're talking about even a light which is higher than the world, but yet connected to the world. Einoi chidush amiti. That's not a real novelty to bring down the light that has a connection to the world. The oir chodosh hu oir ein sof shalamayla me'shaychus la'olamais. But when we talk about a new light, we're talking about an Ein Sof which is higher than being connected to the world. So since we're talking here about a chidush, we're calling it v'nifkadeto, we're calling it to be remembered. B'zeu sha'avshochas oirze nikra v'nifkadeto. That's why we call it remembered, because we're bringing down something new, and memory, remembered, we're talking about a level which is higher than the world, bringing down Eid itself, which is higher than Ishtalshus, a real Chiddush. Because that's where, when we say Hashem remembers us, that's a place where there is forget, where Hashem could, so to speak, forget us, because it's a level which is not connected to the Olamas. In a level which is connected to the Olamas, there could be no forgetting. We don't need to remember, because it's always connected. And therefore, we call this level which is higher than Hishtal, we call it to remember. Because it's an Ein in Sof, which is higher than connection to the world, we call this to remember. As explained elsewhere, just like by a person. Inyan hazikorin ein shaykh el bedover she'eino nechshav be'einov, that by a person you can only need to remember something, it's by an item which is not important to him. So he forgets it. So that it's to the extent that it's so not important that it's easy to forget. So similarly, it's above the inyan hazikorin u'ba'orin sof shelamayla m'shaychus lo'elamis. The idea of zikorin, to remember, is in the Ein Sof, which is higher than being connected to the world. The kula kameki lo'choshi, in the level where everything Hashem is not important. So in the level of non-importance, the world is not really remembered over there. It can be forgotten. And that's why, when do we get from the level of zikorin? We get remembered is ki yipoket meshavecha, through the level of bittul, your place will be missing. Dam shochas ha'oir shalamaylo meshayches lo'ilamos, that to bring down this light which is higher than being connected to the world, which is v'nifkadeto, you'll be remembered. Zikaron is in the world and higher than hishtalshlus, higher than the oir that has a connection to the world. That comes specifically and only through the bittul of Yipoket Noshavecha. When you have the level of bittul, why is it associated with bittul? Because the kshavoi das adam kshuraim hametzius shaloi, when the service of the person is tied with his existence. Yeah, an existence of Kedusha. You're Mitzias. You're an entity, you're a holy entity. But it's still connected with entity, not bittel, but with Mitzias. Ha'amshocha shenimsheches al yidei ha'avoida. So what is drawn down through this service? Himibchinas ha'oir ha'shayich lo'olamais Mitzias. That comes from a level which is connected to the world, which is Metzias, because the oir that is Shaykh La'olamos is Metzias. So Metzias of the person can bring down the Metzias of the oir, which is a Metzias, which is Shaykh La'olamos. In order for it to be drawing down the light which is higher than being connected to the world, in the place the Kula Kamekela Choshim, where all before Hashem is not considered anything, hu al yidei habitl, that is through the level of bitl, which is yipokin meshavecha, through the level of bitl, because lack of mitzias reaches to the place of zikorin, which is higher than his talshlus, which is not mitzias, which is a place where kula kameke lechoshiv, and that you're mamshich through yipokin meshavecha, through bitl. Base. So now let's explain exactly where the level of zikorin is, and the Rebbe is going to explain this is higher than all the levels of Isarusa de Leila, which are not connected to, even higher than Ishtalshlus, and this is even higher, the level of zikorin, that your mamshich through the bitl is even a higher place. Base. To explain the great advantage of nifkadeta shenimshach al yidei pocket mishavecha, that extends and is drawn down through the level of bitli pocket mishavecha. Bepratis yosef, more specifically to identify the level of that zikaron. Yuvan api amavur v'lekut Torah will understand it based on what's explained in Lekut Torah. Over there it says shebisarusa de le'ela yesh gimel b'chinas. In the arousal from above, we have three levels. We have isarusa de le'ela shemitzad atzma. We have a arousal from above, which comes on its own, not being initiated by the person. There is a arousal from above, which sort of gives the person the nudge to go ahead and do a isarusa de latata, but that comes from above. Then you have the isarusa de la'ela shemisereres v'nimshechas. You have an arousal of above that is woken up and aroused, and it extends al yidei isarusa de latata, that goes through the arousal of below avodah sa'odom. The person serves the Eberster, and through his avodah, he brings down a hamshocha milmayla that responds to his isarusa de latata. And then you have isarusa de le'ela haba mevatona milmayla. Then you have an isarusa de le'ela that comes as a gift from above. Ella. That gift only comes that comes specifically after the person completes his avodah. That's when he can get the gift of isarusa de le'ela, the higher level. It's explained over there in Lekut Torah. She is a rusa de le'ela shemitzad atzma. That also that is a rusa de le'ela that comes on its own in the first process of the sarusa de le'ela. Himimokim she'eni sarusa de letata magas l'sham. That is a place where the person's asarusa, the work avodah sa'odam, cannot reach that level from where the sarusa de le'ela comes on its own. Hainu. Shamshochas is arusa de leila zu. The bringing down this, what level of is arusa de leila from above that we bring down? He me'oid in sof shalamayla ma'oila. That's from the oid in sof, which is higher than worlds. Shaligabe, relative to that is arusa de leila, is arusa de latato and evchshachas lemauma. The arousal of below is not considered for anything, and that isarusa de leila that comes on its own doesn't respond to the isarusa de latata because it doesn't mean anything to that level of isarusa de leila which comes on its own. And then you have the second level, isarusa de leila shenimshechas al yidei isarusa de latata, and the isarusa de leila which does extend through the isarusa de latata. That responds, this arusa de letata, the arusa de leila that comes through this arusa de letata, through the avodah sa'odom. That's a place. Where does it come from? Where does it reach? That's a place. Arusa de letata magas l'sham. That the place where the arousal of below reached there, so that it brought about the arusa de leila. Hainu. Which means when we say that it reaches there, in that place there's a value to the nivroim. So what they do count means over there. So that means the level, as opposed to a sarusa de leila on its own. That over there the people avodah has no value. That's why it comes by itself. But now it's a level in which we're mamshich from a level in which the sarusa de latata does reach over there, and it has some value. To the extent not only does it have value, but it's their service. It's a rusa del tato. Is what wakes up and draws down this rusa del leila. And then you have the highest level, and then you have zerus leila, which comes as a gift. That comes from a place where the arousal of below does not reach there at all. And the question is, Why does it follow the Sarusa de Elo that comes after Sarusa de Latato? If the Sarusa de Latato has nothing to do with it. So he says, Elo she'neshodim izgalas elo lachre shlemus havodah, that only rests and is revealed after the complete avodah. V'yasarusa de le'elo she'nimsheches al yodo, after the avodah of the person Sarusa de Latato, and his mamshich is Sarusa de le'elo, from which he initiated and is connected to the avodah, and he wrote it down. That wrote down through it, and then you get the gift. If it's a gift, what does it have to do with what he does? Even though this arousal of above comes as a gift from above, you have to be, there needs to be a vessel to receive that isrus. The Eibishter does not rest only in a place which is whole. In order for it to be the revelation of this Sarusa Leila, Matona. So it's not that we initiated it. It comes on its own, it comes in a gift. But how do we get this gift? We have to have a keli somewhere to rest where this gift is going to rest. So Richlius Hashlem is the Maisa Tachtoinim. There needs to be the wholesomeness of the act of the Tachtoinim. So we need to do our thing in order to make us an asar shlim, to make us whole. And once we're whole, we can get this gift. Isaruso diletato. We need this ruso tav, isaruso dileila shebeserer, to have the arousal of below and the response, saruso dileila, which is aroused and extends through this saruso diletato. And then you can get the gift. The gift has with where to rest. The Rebbe says, V'yesh, but we can say, Shahagilui dinifkadeto. When we talk about, so here the highest level is the Sarusa Leila that comes as a gift. The Rebbe says the level that we reach through our bittul comes even from a higher level than the highest level of Sarusa Leila, which is a matona, but the bittul brings the nifkadeto from a higher level. V'yesh loimar. שהגילוי דנפקדתו הוא תנאי ליוסר גם מהסרוסו דלאילו שאחרי שלמוס הווידה. That revelation of nefkadeto is even on a higher level also than the saruso delailo, which comes after the complete avodah. That matona is saruso delailo, nefkadeto zikaron is a higher level. The fact is that still, that it takes the wholesome, the person needs to be completely, his work completely, and that's when the gift will be given. It's his complete avodah which makes him fit to get that matone. That is, becomes like a vessel, because at the end of the day, that is the prerequisite in order to get it down. So he becomes a vessel to the revelation of Sirisa Leila. So that moira, that points, that the service of man has some sort of a value, it has some sort of a connection to the Sirisa Leila, because it only comes after the person's Avodah is complete. So it's connected to the Avodah Sodom at the end of the day. The Beis of Shalamayla Meshaychus La'olamis Shakuloi Kamekel Lechoshev, because in the Ein Sof, which is higher than having a connection to the world, because everything is considered like nothing. So the person hasn't done anything. There's no Avodah there. And Shlayich Loimar, so over there it doesn't fit to say that the fact that the person's action, when it becomes complete, that makes it a fitting place. Asar Shalim makes it the whole place to get the Lagil Deir Sof. The give on Shekulei Kamei Kiloi Choshiv, because since everything before Hashem is considered like nothing, Hare Legabe Gilui Zeh Ein Zeh Asar Shalim. So relative to this level, it's not an Asar Shalim. Why? Because it doesn't matter to the Keloi Choshev, it doesn't matter what goes on here, Ma'aseh Tachtonim. So how could we say that because the Ma'aseh Tachtonim is complete, Asar Shalim, that's why it will come down? It means that it comes at a level that has some sort of a connection to Avodas HaTachtonim. But when we talk about V'nifkadeto, the idea of Zikorin, V'ina Zikorin V'nifkadeto, U'ba'adargo De'erin Sof Shekula Kamei L'choshiv. That's in the level when there's nothing L'choshiv. But Dugmas Inyan HaZikorin, similar to the idea of Zikorin, as we brought down, it's only with something which is not considered. That's where you could remember. So that means that's a level which Kiloi that the world is Lechoshiv, and that's why we have to remember from this. And that means the Hamshocha that we get through Yiv Kopoked comes through the level of Bitl. So basically, even though that the Serusa de Leilo, the highest level, the third level, comes through as a gift, and it comes only to be an Asar Shalim, but the fact that Asar Shalim means something, it means that to the level of Ein Sof, the Sarusa de Leila that comes from Matana, there is still a connection to the world. But the idea of Zikorin is higher. That's the place in Kiloi Choshev, and that comes through Bittul. And the Rebbe is going to continue asking, in that case, so how is remembering, how is Bittul going to accomplish it? Bittul is also, we're saying, through your Bittul, your Mamshich, that level. How could it be that the Bittul should be Mamshich level, as the Rebbe continues in Ois Gimel?